How's it going, everybody? I wanted to make my Nekusar deck because I got it in the secret lair, and obviously he looks amazing. Um, he's a zombie wizard legendary, two colorless, blue, black, red. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. If an opponent draws a card, they lose a life. So basically, just everything's wheeling out your opponents. He is one of probably the most hated commanders because obviously it's a control deck. Um, you're controlling your opponent's hands. You're controlling opponent or what opponents do. If they have a really good hand, and they're trying to do their own win condition, and you basically mill them out of it, and they have no way to get it back, they're screwed over. So you pretty much dominate the game. Um, yeah, and then it's just something for fun. I know a lot of people really hate to fight against them, but it's just something for casual or commander tournaments or something. Bring it in, destroy everybody, bring it out. Have some fun. Start off with my artifacts. Obviously, with a commander deck, you have to play um all three of the rocks. Felwar Stone, make a mana that a land can produce on your opponent's side. Obviously, if someone brings out Command Tower, make all five colors, you're pretty much good to go. Arcane Signet is whatever your commander is, so it's all your colors for a 2 mana rock. And then the same thing with Commander Sphere. Well, Commander Sphere is in here because you can sacrifice him and then draw a card. And then with these colors, there's no green, uh, so you're pretty limited on your mana supply. So you're trying to get as much mana as possible. So you play with the three rocks. The other rocks I don't really like because you're just paying one to make another color for itself, and then the color just pays for itself. At least with these ones, you're making additional mana. Um, One colorless, and then whichever land you ping for, you take a life for whatever color you want. My colorless rocks, um, obviously, Soul Ring is a staple for all commander. You're trying to get out Soul Ring Tur 1, with all the memes and stuff. Uh, Thought Vessel is in here because it is no maximum hand size. So you need that no maximum hand size for when you windfall or you do other stuff that's trying to discard cards or benefit you. But yeah, no maximum hand size in a draw deck is always a plus. And then Mana Crypt because it's Mana Crypt. Turn 1 Mana Crypt and just trying to bring out whatever rocks you can to mana ramp as fast as you can. Jeweled Lotus. Because your commander costs 5, you can produce 3 of whatever color the commander is, and then by turn 2, you can have the other 2 colors. You can bring out your commander by turn 2, and everyone's drawing cards and losing life already. For infinite combo, Bloodchief Ascension. If an opponent at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 life or more, put a counter on it. If it has 3 counters on it, whenever a card is sent to the graveyard, your opponent loses 2 life and then you gain 2 life. So Mind Crank says that whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards into the graveyard. So the infinite combo is that you're doing something to put something into a graveyard. This triggers off losing 2 life. Whenever you lose 2 life, Mind Crank puts 2 cards and just keeps going over and over until your opponent's completely milled out. Library of Lang. If you skip your discard phase and you could put cards that you discard back on top of your deck. This is really good because whenever you're playing a will effect. You're putting whatever you want back on top of your deck, so you're not losing your combos. You're just interrupting your opponent. For protection, Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Obviously, protection for your commander. Make sure that they're not being destroyed. Make sure that, Shieldred's not being destroyed or whatever other combo piece you have. But yeah, 2 commander staples. I have Spellbook in here because if I draw into it, it's an easy 0 cost, and I could play it for free. And then I have no maximum hand size. There's a few other cards, obviously, that also have no maximum hand size, but this just helps out because if I don't have those cards, I could play this card for 0. My extra draw, Howling Mine. Howling Mine says that at the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw 2 cards. So obviously, if Nekusar is out, they're taking 3 damage for each card that they draw. So there's a small price to pay for them letting them draw more cards, but they lose more damage. And there's other stuff to ping them too. Teperi's Puzzle Box. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards from his hand back into the bottom of the deck and then draws that many cards. Obviously, Nekusar, you lose life for each card that you draw, so it resets that. It also resets your hand, but you're not really too worried about it because there's so many multiples of each card that when you do reset your hand, you have a higher chance of trying to get something that's a duplicate of that card that you wanted. Shieldred is, another reason why I made the deck. It is the Phyrexian print. Oh, it looks amazing. I picked this up from a friend, so I made this deck solely based on her because I really wanted to play Shieldred in a deck. And then obviously the combo is gonna be Soul Ring or the One Ring. So when Shieldred's out, whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. When our opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Nekusar comes out. He's obviously going to do 3 damage for each card again. All the damage stacks, which makes it really good. When the one ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything for the turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring, and you could put a burden counter and draw cards equal to the number of burden counters on it. So, tap it, draw a card. You draw 1 card, you gain 2 life. You lose a life for the turn. Next turn, put 2 counters, draw 2 cards, gain 4 life, you lose 2 life. So, it keeps working off of each other, but it's really good because you keep gaining more life than what you would lose. Basically, staples for trying to draw into your combos. We have enchantments. Obviously, it's a blue deck, so Ristic Study has to be played. I had this card a long time ago when it was like $5. Nobody really cared about it, but I was like, hey, if you're playing a card and you don't want to pay for it, I get to draw a card. Plus, it's only a 3-drop. So, the memes. Do you pay 1? No, I don't pay 1. Go ahead and draw a card. Oh, I have extra mana, I pay 1. It's fine, because most people play a lot of spells anyway. And once they play all the spells, I'm able to either draw a card or skip it. For enchantments, Helm of Ghost Lord, Gas Lord. So, enchant creature. As long as the enchanted creature is blue, it gets a 1/1 and has whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, draw a card. It also has, if it's black, it gets 1/1 and has whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, that opponent discards a card. So we have Nekusar. Nekusar says draw an extra card, you take 1 damage. Because this is equipped to Nekusar, your opponent would also, or you would draw a card because you did the 1 damage. Then they would discard a card because they took that 1 damage too. So for every 1 card that they draw have to be a card that they discard. So as long as they're drawing 2, 3, 4, 5 cards a turn, Nekusar is doing that damage and he's making them discard their hand. Pff, game over. There's nothing you can really do about that because you're top decking. Which goes well with the next one for Pharesius. No. Pharesius, yeah. Or Farsees, sorry. I don't know. Yeah. So Nekusar is doing the 1 damage, taking an infect. Doing another damage, take an infect. All you do is draw 10 cards, and you're taking that 10 damage. Pretty much game. And this affects everyone around the table. So if you have Nekusar out and you have some damage dealer and another draw, you can pretty much take everyone out around the table without even having their turns. As soon as they hit their draw step, they're pretty much dead. And a fun one that I looked into when I was reading online, Sigil of Sleep. So whenever an enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to their hand. Nekusar is obviously drawing 2 cards per turn, doing 2 damage. So those 2 damage, I get to return 2 creatures off the field. Then whatever other draws they do, I get to return a creature. Whatever an opponent draws a card, I can return a creature. So obviously this is like a field wipe to return everything back to the hand, mill them out, or basically like do a wheel. They're gone. They don't have to come back out to the field unless they have like the resurrection spells and stuff. Nasty Plot. Sorry, not Nasty Plot. Waste Not. Waste Not is a really good effect in the field because once your opponents are discarding, you're able to take whatever advantages that you can. If a creature is discarded, I make a 2/2 zombie. If a land is discarded, I make 2 black. If a non-creature, non-land is discarded, I draw a card. So I get more benefit for doing that. Plus, this is super sweet. It was really good that they came out with the secret lair. So we have another basically Spiteful Vision is Nekusar on a enchantment. Each player draws a card, and for every card that they draw, they lose 1 life. Both of them out. You're drawing 3 cards per turn, but you're taking 2 life for each card, so you're taking 6 life just for drawing for your turn. Basically an essential. Underworld Dreams, 3 black. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 1 life. Nekusar's second ability. But it also stacks on top of everything, so it really does help out. Yeah, this card is basically the essential too, with its amazing artwork. Yeah. So we have Force Fruition. Whenever an opponent draws a spell, whenever an opponent plays a spell, that player draws 7 cards. Nekusar is out, you're drawing 7 cards, you're taking 7 damage just for playing your spell for each turn. You could choose not to play anything, but I mean, I'm just gonna mill you out anyway, or will, and you're gonna take whatever damage you're gonna get anyway. But this card is really good because if they do, let's say they play a spell like a counter spell, you have everybody out, that player has to draw 7 cards and then takes all the damage, but they stop you from wheeling everybody. So, you know, it's just a really good card. Let's go with creatures. Kami basically is a Howling Mind on a 1/3 creature. But yeah, letting everybody draw more cards, taking more damage. Magus of the Wheel is really good because just sacrifice him off for 2 mana. Everyone draws 7 cards. You wheel everybody. Jace's Archivist and Windfall are basically the same card. You pay 1 blue, tap it, everybody windfalls. So they have to draw equal to the amount of the highest cards discarded. Both the same card, both really good. Another set of the same card, Whirlpool Warrior and Winds of Change. Whirlpool Warrior is that whenever she comes out, you basically return your hand back into the deck, draw that many cards. You might have a bunch of wheels or something you don't want to get rid of, so you can refill your hand. And then for 1 red, you can sacrifice her or play this. Each player does the same thing. So return your hand back into your deck, draw that many cards, obviously take that much damage. Turgid. Turgid is obviously an auto include for this deck because whenever you're going to make your opponents discard their hands, you're going to get all of their permanents to your side of the field. Probably one of the most hated cards and probably going to be targeted a lot. Sakushima. Obviously, copy Nekusar, copy Shieldred, copy any of your big damage dealers. It keeps its name, so it's not following the legendary rule. Really good for copying stuff. I would have the other one with the faces, but it's in another deck. You could add that too. Sakushima of 1,000 Faces. You can copy the Nekusar, make whatever you want. Don't follow the legendary rule. Technically, you could play copy spells in here too. So, copy Nekusar, play more, do more damage. As far as damage dealers, so 3 staples for this deck. Sulfim doubles whatever damage they're gonna take. So 1 will equal 2. Just so forth. But yeah, he's really good in the deck because he does a lot more damage. It's hard to see with the ink. Then we have Gerson or Gyrson. Whenever you do 1 damage, like Nekusar's effect, then you could do 2 damage on top of that. So you're taking 3 damage for each hit with Nekusar. Really, really good. Then we have Ogre. I don't know. Whenever a red source like Nekusar does damage, he will do equal to his attack. So you're taking 4 damage for each one, obviously doubling it. You could take 8 damage for each card you draw, which does add up pretty quickly. Yeah, so those are my damage dealers, my damage multipliers on a stick. Season is in the deck because at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. So you lose 2 life, you draw 2 cards, take 2 damage from Nekusar, draw 2 more cards for your draw step. Yeah, you're just taking more and more damage. Obviously with the damage doublers, you're taking even more damage. It just stacks up. Everything stacks up in this deck once you finally get it up and going. Uh, Orcish Bowmasters. I don't think I need to say anymore. Whenever it enters the battlefield or whenever your opponent draws a card, except for the first card they draw each turn, which is really easy for this deck. So Nekusar will allow them to draw a second card. From the second card, you get to do the 1 damage and amass 1 orc. Really easy. You can take out and ping small things. You could do damage to players. If they're on like their last couple, a little bit of life, you just mill them out. Or not, will them out and then just kill them off. This card I was kind of thinking about taking out. Sangromancer. But it is really good if you have her out and you're trying to mill out your opponents. Or will out your opponents. Whenever an opponent's monster is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, I gain 3 life. So I'm not really doing too much on pinging creatures. But whenever your opponent discards a card, for each card they discard, you gain 3 life. So this can get out of hand pretty fast if I'm basically making people discard their whole hand. The last creature, Fate Unraveler. Nekusar's second effect. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they take 1 damage. Obviously, adding as much damage as possible for each card that they draw. And then the fun part. So, Incendiary Command, you could choose to. Incendiary Command deals 4 damage to target player, or deals 2 damage to each creature, or destroy target non-basic land, which, that's basically frowned upon for Commander anyway, but each player discards all cards in their hand, then draws that many cards. Obviously, it's going to be the last effect that I'm going to choose. I'll choose the first effect just to basically do an extra 4 damage. With everything else, like if I could double that damage, 8 damage to one player, kill them off, or get them close enough to kill them off, and then when they draw their cards, they're basically dead. Days Undoing. So each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into the library, then draws 7 cards. If it's your turn, end this turn. So I end my turn, but I get to redo my deck. So all the cards in my hand, all the cards in my graveyard, I get them all back, and I get to start wheeling or doing whatever. This is basically like my revival spell. Yep. Wheel of Fortune. The most confusing card that we have to play. Basically, what it is, each player chooses a number. The player with the lowest number, like 0, does nothing with their hand. The player with the highest number takes that much damage, and then you then you discard your hand and draw 7. Everybody in the middle just basically discards their hand and draws 7. So if you have somebody that picks 2, they lose 2 life, discard their hand, draw 7. Everyone that picked 1 basically does the same thing but doesn't lose life. Everyone that picked 0 gets to keep their hand. That's pretty much what this deck is. Or what this card is. So it's always confusing because people like to word it differently. Wheel and Deal. I really like Wheel and Deal because this one is any number of target opponents, each discards their hand and draws a new 7. I get to draw a card. So I'm not really worried about like my hand. I get to discard my opponent's hand, do all the damage, and then I get to draw an extra card to see what I get. Dark Deal. Each player discards their hand. and then draws one or draws that many -1. I try to play this one as fruitfully as possible. If my hand is really low, and I'm having a really hard time in the game, I won't play it on myself because I don't want to reduce my hand. But I mean, it is a last minute resort to do the last minute damage to try and get whatever you can for Nekusar. Whispering Madness. This one was really good. Or was really good because each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards discarded this way, which is basically a windfall. But it's cipher. So you cipher it onto Nekusar, or somebody that has flying, or it's gonna do any kind of combat damage. This doesn't work for non-combat damage, but it does work for only combat. So if you can swing in with that creature, you play the same thing, mill everybody out, or will everybody out, and just keep doing it as much as possible. Molten Psyche. Each player shuffles their hand back into their library and then draws that many cards. And then with Metalcraft, which I have enough artifacts usually to do its effect. Your opponents lose damage equal to the number of cards they drew. So you're basically doing 1 damage or 2 damage for each card that they draw, and then hopefully they draw at least 5, do 10 damage. The meat and potatoes of the deck. Simple and clean. All players discard their hands and draw 7 new cards. Reforge the Soul. So each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards, but you can have Miracle. So if I play Vampiric Tutor or Imperial Seal and put it back on top of my deck, whenever I draw it, I get to play its Miracle cost. So for 2, I can basically discard everyone's hand and redraw. For my counter spells, an offer you can't refuse, counter target non-creature spell. I'm not really too worried about them creating 2 treasure tokens because I'm milling out so much that there's so much variety on cards that they could be drawing that I'm not really worried about what they can bring out. I mean, yeah, you could mill them into their combo, but more times out of any, they're gonna be discarding their combo, so I'm not really worried about the mana. Plus, if it saves my Nekusar or my combo pieces, they're more important than this. Mana Drain, obviously, counter a spell. Get colorless mana equal to that converted mana cost. The original OG counter spell, counter anything. Force of Will, pay 1 life and exile a blue card from your hand, counter a spell. Negate, counter target non-creature spell, basically like board wipes or whatever is going to get rid of my creatures. And then Arcane Denial is really good in this deck because your opponents are going to draw 2 cards, which is basically what you want to do, and you can counter this spell. My Search, which has Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Seal. Both of them are basically the same thing, but Vampiric Tutor is an instant, so you can play it during your upkeep. Imperial Seal is a sorcery, so you can only play it during your main phases. Search your library for a card, put it on top, lose 2 life. Pretty simple. Mystical Tutor, which is my instant. I get to look for whatever will I need, and then basically just use the will and get rid of everybody that I need to get rid of. Also the same thing, solve the equation for 3. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card, reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle. Mystical Tutor also works with like miracle costs, but it puts it back on top of the deck. Demonic Tutor. Look through your deck, get whatever you need for the time that you need it. Really good. Crack the Vault. I'm sorry. Actually, it's Grim Tutor. This one is the Fortnite. Um, Search for a card, put it into your hand, take 3 life. The only reason why Demonic Tutor is always better is because it costs 1 less black and you don't have to pay the life. And I think it's an instant too. My Dark Ritual, that'll be it for my searchers. Dark Ritual is, pretty much a staple for black decks. If I have a black blue red land, tap my black, I can play my Nekusar by turn 3, or just whatever helps with trying to make 3 mana. Another game ender is Peer into the Abyss. Ridiculous. Target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library, rounded up. Then they with Nekusar, you lose that much life. So pretty much you could take anybody out of the game for 7 mana, as long as Nekusar or another damage dealer is out. But yeah, it's a good 1-turn kill. And then Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift is like one of the best cards in this deck. Overload it for 7, then will somebody or will everybody. Their entire field goes back to their hand, and you send it off to the graveyard, and they draw whatever amount of cards. It's really, really gross. Yeah, and then that would be it for the deck. The last things would be my lands, which would be 4 swamps, 3 mountains, 3 of my my islands. Yeah, they're the oil slicked. I triple sleeve my cards, obviously because of value and trying to take care of them. So for my colorless lands, Fabled Passage, get to look for one of my basic lands. Reflecting Pool because I need to make mana. Necropolis, because obviously it comes in tapped, but it's still really good because it makes all 3 mana. Xander's Lounge does the same thing, but it has all 3 land types. Reliquary Tower, obviously trying to make my infinite hand size. And then what is it? Gear? Yeah. So I get to tap this one for colorless. For 2, I can tap it. Each player draws a card and then discards a card. Lose a life, discard a card. Mill out a little bit. Urlborg, because everything has to be black. Command Tower, obviously, because it's a commander deck. Command Tower has to be out. The two or more opponent lands. Black, red, blue, black. The check lands. If you control a mountain or a swamp or an island and a mountain. My 3 shock lands, just to be able to put the lands out. Pay 2 life, untap them. My fetch lands, looking for whatever shock land I need, or Xander's Lounge. My 2 or more lands, by turn 3, I can bring this out untapped. And then my reveal lands, all 3 of the black red, blue red, and blue black. But yeah, that would be my Nekusar deck. Really fun to play, really fun to do. You can make all kinds of variations of whatever you like. I know it probably is kind of expensive, based on the cards that I showed. But whatever is in your budget, you can move some stuff around. Makes a couple of things a lot more easier. Just as long as you have the will effects to make your opponent discard and redraw the cards. Um, yeah. Whatever you want to do. Thanks for watching. Please like and have a good day.